Thanks for coming back, everyone. Um, we were just looking at connecting spaces, natural spaces for people, and a tool that can help with that is Natural Resources Wales Green Space Toolkit, which is available through our website. Um, you're probably all painfully familiar with that, and we did a webinar on that, which you can see on the Green Infrastructure Forum's YouTube channel. So if you like those webinars, please click the like button and do consider subscribing to the channel because it'll make it easier for other people to, to find the videos. Penny, you had a question about street trees. If you could unmute yourself and ask that.
Yes, I did. I was just interested really in maybe whether Beth and her colleagues use a criteria for locating street trees. I guess in terms of all the green infrastructure that we have um, put into Swansea. I must say, I find street trees one of the hardest ones to try and fit into the urban streetscape due to issues like accessibility, width of pavements, width of highways, services. But yet, I think they're massively important in terms of their ecosystem services. So I'm just sort of interested in, do you guys have like a criteria? Have you found it successful? Can you give us any tips for how you've achieved it? Or do you face a lot of the same problems that we do?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm generally we did a when I started with the council, I was working with Penny on a connecting green infrastructure project, and one of the things that we did through that was we did a canopy mapping project, and so like generally we look at planting trees in those areas that have the lowest canopy cover, where that report told us, and where we know there is a need for trees. Largely the simplest option we've been doing, and the easiest wins that we've been doing, is looking them at planting in existing verges, or like green spaces, although there is always the service issue going on there. And I'm sure that you and I have probably had many conversations with Welsh Water about planting over main supplies and sewers and things like that, and we still haven't really got very far with that. The other thing that we're doing is looking at replacing aging stock, or stock that we've lost in existing tree pits, or replacing those tree pits and planting in those. But yes, we face the exact same issues as you in terms of services, in terms of the correct selection of tree pits in urban spaces for longevity, and the issues that people foresee with roots breaking up pavements and things like that. We get a lot of that problem, as well as some of the most interesting engagement sessions I've ever been in are trying to plant trees in community spaces and having arguments about parking and things like that. So it seems to be one of the more contentious issues, but like you can drastically see it in heat waves like today, that we walk into an area that has street trees, it's substantially cooler. And so we're really trying to deliver it. But yes, I think we face a lot of the same issues, Benny. I can't say there's a
Yeah.
magic wand that we've been able to wave to find that solution. One of the other problems that we see as well, and I'm sure you see it, is the watering of trees after they're planting. So a lot of the street trees that are planted, especially in some of our areas, if they aren't watered, are struggling to survive. And so we've been trying to implement policy to make sure that we maintain them afterwards so that they do survive.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I think, agree totally. We're focused on our verges and on our existing green space, but that ironically limits the space where you need the most, which is in the
definitely.
highly
Yeah,
grade
definitely.
areas. I don't know what anybody else thinks on this link, but I wonder if maybe there would be a benefit to maybe getting together with likes of Welsh Water and others nationally, and looking at how we can maybe unpick some of those issues, because I'm guessing we're all facing the same issues and they are tricky. Just putting that
Yeah.
out there. Maybe it's something I'll think about organizing with you or something, Beth.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work for Welsh Water, so I probably I got some good links in. I could try and get into them. So yeah, I'll give you a message. But yeah, we can try and set something up and get other local authorities involved. I think that's a good idea.
I wonder if I could turn to Jacinta because the Woodland Trust recently held an arts event in Cardiff. And as a result of that, a question was asked in the Senedd about street trees, and the minister seemed quite keen. So I wonder if there's an opportunity here for a collaboration and possibly even even a conference leading on to some kind of action plan for street trees across Wales. Jacinta.
Oh, yes. Oh, thanks, Peter. Yeah, and Penny and Beth, I think when I used to work for Wrexham local authority, it was exactly the same situation with us as well. So fully appreciate how difficult it is to put street trees in. But one of the main things that came out of treescapism was, from the people that we engaged with, was that that whilst it is very difficult, they're not denying it's very difficult either. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, and they should be ignored basically because it's too difficult. So the call to action there then was, the MSs who came to the treescapism exhibition brought that to the Senedd, didn't they? And the question is really about how we can resource it, because whilst it is very difficult, it isn't impossible if there is enough resources and funding and buy-in from all various departments of local authorities to do it and to take action. So it was really heartwarming to see how that exhibition was received. It was really powerful, and we're preparing a video on a single screen, because the exhibition itself was like completely immersive. So when you stepped in, you were surrounded by the imagery and the film. So we're editing it to make it into a single screen, and then that can be shared with everybody basically. So you can see what this community of Splot in Cardiff is talking about. And I think it's fairly representative of urban neighbourhoods across Wales and the UK even, really, because they all share a similar experience in heat like we've been having this July, don't they? It sounds like that. I mean, there is some conversation about urban forestry within Welsh Government. I know that there is, we've talked about it with various officials as well. So, it's really interesting to see it, and watch this space really, I think. But I do think it'll be collective action, both at a neighbourhood level, local authority level, and Senedd, Welsh Government level, if we're going to make the impact it needs to get these trees in the ground.
Yeah, and I think the idea of bringing Welsh water into the conversation, because this scene behind me is, as everybody knows, is Grangetown. It's the Greener Grangetown project. It was initiated by Welsh Water. Unlike the next largest SUDS retrofit scheme, which is in Mansfield, which was pushed by Severn Trent Water, this one has trees in it. So it's a truly multifunctional space. And Penny was talking about getting trees in via their rain gardens. There's a massive opportunity here to work with the underground service owners to improve the conditions in urban areas. And as we all know, you can walk down a street which has got street trees and not get fried. Walk down any other kind of street, it's going to be really nasty. But we're not in a heat wave all the time, and we need the street trees to help disperse some of that rainwater that falls on us. So let's continue this conversation after this meeting. In the meantime, Petra has a question. Petra, could you unmute yourself and turn your camera on?
Oh, sorry, I just realised I haven't got the camera on. Apologies, Peter. Just have the wildflowers instead. I'm so sorry. No, I just wanted to say, obviously, I put that link there, they're doing a lot of interesting work with Welsh Water. I think with their own headaches. I think similar to what everybody else is having with the local authorities and ourselves. Obviously, we'd be the trunk road agent, and we share similar things. Like Rose was saying about the issue of taking off the horizons, we do the same really as where we can. A small number of sites where we are able to take it off site, but we've got little sacrifice areas, which isn't ideal, but it does allow us to have these lovely sites. One of my question actually was going to be to Beth. I know obviously you've only put them in fairly recently. I think you're on this. Is this the second growing season now with the bike shelters? And they're probably not doing great in the heat wave, but I was just wondering how they're doing really.
Yeah, they're actually doing really well. We went to Aberravon, so we got 2 on Aberravon seafront, 1 in Melancourt car park, and then a couple in the Knoll, and it's kind of scattered over a few other sites. And they're doing really well. They did go over quite early this year, but that's just because of how hot it's been, and everything's gone over quite early. But in general, yeah, they've grown really well. We kind of do recommend to, cut them back once a year as you would almost a meadow in the certain aspects, but a lot of them we haven't had the opportunity to do that with in the second year, and at the end of the first year into the second year, and they've looked really good. They do look really really kind of green and flowering quite well. We've had some issues with some of our other green roofs where we've had to kind of top up the planting and things like that because we've had some struggles. But yeah, for those particular bike shelters and those bin stores, they've done really well.
Oh, I'm pleased to hear it. That's brilliant. Thank you.
So to build on Penny's question in the chat, what species mix do you use on these shelters? That because traditionally bike shelter plantings, they're fairly shallow substrates, so they don't hold a lot of water. But what planting mix are you using that enables them to look so good even when they're suffering from drought stress?
We're generally picking like a wildflower mix or a mix of species for the area. So for the ones that are on the seafront, they are like a kind of more coastal mix of wildflowers, or a mix that you would see conventionally in that area. Then we've got up in like Melancourt woodland, for example, they're like a more local mix. So hopefully they're more hardy to the climate that they are experiencing because they're selected to have been in that area. We didn't put so many like dune grasses or anything like that, but there are a lot of more coastal wildflower species on the seafront, and then up in Melancourt, more woodland species, just so that they're more appropriate to be able to survive. But obviously in areas of extreme heat and things like that, where, there are issues with them dying off earlier, just because, as you said, there's a lot less substrate than there would be if they were planted directly into the ground. When we did first do the ones on the seafront, we did water them just to allow them time to establish so that they were more hardy for the next season. But we haven't done that with ones up in the woodlands and things like that, just because they are more sheltered, and it is a wetter kind of microclimate. So, yeah.
And the shelters that you showed, they looked a bit like some of the ones that the grass roof companies supply.
They are those shelters. Yeah, I mean, obviously others are available. Some of the best shelters that we used, we retrofitted and worked with other companies to do, set our own standards of what we wanted to see. So we've worked with other companies to develop other green roof shelters or retrofitted. But those are, yes, not to kind of point in any direction of supplier, but yeah, they have been very successful. They are very good off the shelf.
And I know that the John Little from the Grass Roof Company has done a lot of experimentation of growing plants pretty much in pure sand, simply because of where he's based in Essex on the edge of London, and they do get a lot of drought stress. Did you use any of the plants which they supplied, or did you supply the plants all yourself?
We did use the plants they supplied, but we specified what we wanted for each area. So like they were very good to work with us to specify what planting we wanted, selecting from like existing lists that they had. Other roofs that we've supplied, we've got planted up using other local companies and things like that, like Celtic Wildflowers and others, to supply the planting ourselves. So yeah, it is a mix of whether we supply the plants or the green roof company can supply the plants. But for the grass roof company, they're very they worked with us to select the species.
Oh, that's absolutely fascinating to hear. Before we get any other questions coming up, one of my bugbears is how should we call it? Intensive green walls. because they've got a nasty habit of failing if the pumps which supply them with water, um, have any kind of problem. What kind of green walls have you got, and how are you managing to keep them in good nick in these conditions?
We've got a mix. The ones that we've delivered through the last couple of projects, we've got some very simple ones, which, as I mentioned in the presentation, were the trellis-based system. So literally wires held between posts, planted things like clematis and ivy and honeysuckle on those, which have done very well, the more native species of those. We've also then got the plant box system on a couple of our buildings. So the one that you saw with the mural, which I mentioned was at the rugby ground, that's the plant box system, and that's connected with a really simple hose irrigation connection to their outdoor tap. And that's done pretty well. There was a bit of a failure in the irrigation where somebody unplugged it and then didn't plug it back in, where we had to redo some of the planting. So it's that kind of management of the people that you leave it with, kind of trying to make sure that there's a mix of instruction, information, and training, but also like a reduction in user error. So we did end up putting like a cage around that irrigation system. And then we have got some more like serious and intensive green wall sections that aren't necessarily owned by us. So Swansea University, which is in Neath Port Talbot Authority, the Bay campuses, that has a more complex green wall. They have had issues with things like budlear and things like that invading that green wall. I think they maintain it, cut it back twice a year. So yeah, I suppose the more complicated, the more difficult the maintenance. But yeah, it's just that upkeep of that maintenance aspect that, as long as it gets done, that green wall at Swansea Bay campus has been going for a long time now, and it still looks very high quality and very good for its age. So I don't think they've done that much plant replacement on it.
That's absolutely fascinating, and it's sharing these kinds of experiences which will help the rest of Wales to learn and do better in future. Penny, you had another question. I thought
Sorry, I pressed it by accident.
Well, you fooled me.
But what I would say is we've also got a really good example of an intensive green wall on Potter's Wheel in town, and that one's 5 years old. And like Beth was saying, they are intensive, they are more expensive to maintain, and they do often use portable water. But on the other hand, they have a really, really good wow factor. And as long as the water's not turned off and the maintenance is done, I mean, the Potter's Wheel one is 5 years old now, and it still looks fabulous.
Yeah, I'm impressed by it every time I drive past it. I think it's awesome. It's such a good one. And now you've got the one on St David's Hotel as well, which looks great. So
and Astorva. So we've got 3 of them now, decent
yeah.
ones in the city centre. But the Potter's Wheel one is a good one for a long established one to see what it will look like if you do good maintenance and don't turn the water off. No one turns the water off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm starting to get the impression that with green walls, what we're looking for is, if we want the wow factor, then and we're convinced that the organisation upon whose building the thing is going to be put is capable of the maintenance, then that's a good case for them. In the rest of the cases, then again, coming back to John Little, he says whenever he sees a fence, he doesn't see a fence anymore. He sees a trellis. So there's an opportunity there for putting in creepers and climbers, which are much, much lower management and much less likely to fail. We're now 2 minutes off the end of our second part. So unless anybody's got any burning questions, then I'm going to say a huge thanks to Beth and Rose for their presentation. Absolutely fascinating. There's a lot for us to learn. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing everybody at our next webinar, which is probably going to be after the summer now. Thanks once again, everybody. And I'll say bye for now.
Thanks all.